It's fun to eat supper with your family, especially when there is good food on the table. Later on, drink lots of water. A good snack of crackers and milk at home. That's the good kind of food if you're hungry after school. And then, play. Hard play. Plenty of pep now. See what good eating habits can do for you.
Americans are not winning their battle against obesity. One study found that obesity rates for adults actually rose in 28 states this year.
According to experts, almost two-thirds of American adults are seriously overweight or obese. That's a 150% increase in just the last 30 years. Obesity among children
and teenagers is up from 16 to 17.1% over the past 2 years.
Teenage health in 2 decades paints a worrying picture, with 1 in 4 youngsters overweight or obese.
Spending $150 billion a year treating obesity-related illnesses. So we know this is a problem and there's a lot at stake.
But not even her exhortations
Michelle Evans' daughter got one in the second.
New study published today.
North Lawndale, currently home to about 36,000 residents. In the 1960s, there were not nearly as many corner stores, fast food restaurants, and vacant lots. But just like technology, things change. Riots followed the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. in 1968, which left many of the stores on Roosevelt Road destroyed, and over 75% of the businesses in the community disappeared. Today, with over 93% of the North Lawndale population African American, it faces an even bigger problem: obesity.
Obesity is a scary word, a medical term for being severely over what medical professionals feel like ideal weight is for your height, for your age, for your sex.
One misconception is that people who are obese are fat, and that's not necessarily the case. Obesity is more like the condition of being unhealthy, more so than like you just like everyone who's fat is obese.
There are many different cultural perceptions of obesity. So depending upon which community you go into, people will perceive different weights for different children.
There are certain foods that are just associated with certain ages, and Flaming Hots were not things that I ate in my community, but you can't come around here and not eat Flaming Hots, right?
Well, when you talk about not having a healthy lifestyle, you think about diseases. You think about a lot of illnesses that people are struggling with.
Obesity places people at risk for issues like
diabetes,
heart disease,
kidney disease,
high blood pressure,
and on like that.
If you were to ask me what do I think the #1 issue is from a healthcare perspective in our community, my answer is obesity. It's being overweight.
Obesity happens because of lifestyle concerns and community concerns, as well as some contributions of what you inherit from your parents, of course. And it often involves a lot of behavior change, and change is hard for people.
There are factors in society that determine, not always, not for everyone, we call them risk factors in epidemiology, which means that you'll tend to be obese, say in this case, if you have certain characteristics. And those characteristics are, if you're poor, that's the most important one, and the other one that's on a par with poverty is if you're a person of color and therefore victimized by racism.
The African Americans suffer a great deal, not eating healthy, not experiencing the healthy eating such as fruits and vegetables and things like that.
In North Lawndale, it's primarily an African American community. In South Lawndale, it's primarily a Mexican American community. So these communities, when you look at them, they are areas of ethnic minorities?
Number one, I think it's expensive to eat healthy, and especially considering our economy. It's just very difficult for people, parents, to invest that kind of money in things that they don't find as important.
If you can go to, McDonald's and buy the whole menu for like $5, for a family that, doesn't have a lot of money to spend on a meal every day, they might not even look for another alternative because it's like, I know that's cheap. I know I can go to McDonald's and get whatever for, this amount of money.
If you are a victim of racism and if you are poor, then you're more likely to live in communities, to live in neighborhoods, for example, where there are no supermarkets, where there is no fresh foods and so on.
Every day coming to work, I'll see, some children walking down the street and they'll have like their bag of Flaming Hots and their juice, which is just colored sugar water, for their breakfast, but they are less expensive than, going to somewhere and buying apples sometimes. They're readily available at the corner store, which is directly across the street.
Many of your African American communities suffer the most, mainly because of the fact that there's not a lot of access to healthy eating.
In North Lawndale, there is right now one supermarket, Leamington's on Roosevelt Road, and frequently there have been no supermarkets. And so if we give advice to people, we say, well, eat fresh fruits and vegetables, where are they going to get it?
I do think it's limited in the sense of there might be one grocery store here, but then the next place that you can get raw foods or Whole Foods might be a few miles away. And in my neighborhood, some people might be limited in that capacity to to get transported there.
And so if you don't have access to a car very easily, if you don't have access to a place like that to go, you just stay home and you eat and you get overweight and you watch TV.
In addition to the lack of healthier foods, there are other environmental factors that contribute to a person not being healthy. One of those factors is violence.
We tend to have relatively high concentrations of poverty in one place, which translates into things like the absence of good retail food stores, or it translates into a lot more crime than anybody is comfortable with.
I'm a rich white man, but in a sense, that gives me a bit of insight because I see what goes on in rich white communities as well as in poor communities of color. And there's whole lots of stuff that society makes easy to go on in poor communities of color that in a million years would never happen in rich white communities.
Talking to a lot of parents who are in my program are concerned about safety issues. So they don't want their children out riding bikes. They don't want their children out running around just kind of being a kid.
If there are no parks, where do you exercise? But if there are parks and they in turn are dangerous and people don't want to go out into the parks, especially at night, or let their children into the parks because they're too dangerous, then that also is a structural issue that has to do with racism and poverty.
So in North Lawndale, when you look around, we don't have the things that the suburban communities have in terms of parks, in terms of safe places for people to go to be able to get exercise. We don't even have a big mall here, right? Where sometimes people who live near a mall, they'll go to the mall and not go shopping, they'll go in the mall and go for a walk, right? It's a safe place, it's a warm place.
Out there you got healthy stores on the corner stores that are walking distance. Also you got yoga bars and things like that instead of eating all the sugar ice cream and all the junk and stuff.
There's way more, fast food places than there might be, a farmer's market.
As in every community, there are both strengths and weaknesses. In many ways, there can't be a community more beautiful, say, than North Lawndale. And it has a glorious history. At the same time, right now, North Lawndale is a very poor community. and faces a lot of limitations. We each have a personal responsibility to do better, despite racism, despite poverty.
Making people aware that it's not a one-time thing, that it's a lifestyle change, that you do not have to go cold turkey.
At an early age, children don't go out and buy their own food and their choices of like what they eat. They eat with like what their parents give to you. So if you're a child that's at home and your parents eat nothing but like fatty foods and junk, as you get older, you're gonna eat fatty food and junk.
I would like to see more of our parents have some healthy snacks for our kids, something they can have throughout the day, instead of the flaming hots, the Milky Ways and the cookies.
Our mission is to say, no, if you provide a beautiful quality facility, people will come and they will enjoy it and they will spend money and it'll be successful. And so we create the opportunity for a patient to care for themselves, because we can't get on the treadmill with them. We can only provide the treadmill. We wanted to focus on food and give it kind of a green context.
If you're not in the environment that doesn't, facilitate you knowing these alternatives, then, to a certain extent, you're going to be a product of your environment.